All right, it is 9:33. I think I've given sufficient time, even though I still see people joining, which is great. But there's a lot to cover today. I'm pretty excited about bringing this material to you. These are still important seminars, and I do want to say it's unfortunate we can't be in person because part of what these seminars are about is being together as a community. And today's seminars was for the Baltimore region and New York City. So this is the 2020 Esri ArcGIS User Seminar. This year the theme is Amplify Your GIS. We'll cover that in a little bit about what that means. My name is Matthew Deal, and with me is Tom Schwartzman. We are going to be your presenters. I am an account manager out of the Boston office. So I am on the state team, which means I handle state accounts. And I guess just quickly a little bit about myself. I used to cover the Mid-Atlantic region. I feel like I've got a lot of partners and friends in that area. Definitely some names I see popping up here in the attendee window that I recognize. So thank you for joining me. I'd like to say welcome and cheers. This morning, if you're drinking coffee, we can drink together and sort of still have that community focus here together. And I do want to say also one thing in the current times that I've noticed. So by the way, Esri, everyone's working from home. Everyone's tried to make that transition, and my daughter's had to make that transition too. She's a third grader, and it's been interesting to see how technology has helped keep her day-to-day sort of as normal as possible, even though she's adopted totally new technology to be able to connect with friends and her teachers and her classmates. And I think that's an important lesson that I certainly take here as my work with Esri, is that we've got to be open to new technologies in order to do things that still need to get done in a different way. And hopefully they're not difficult or impossible to learn. And I think that's what I'm seeing now, and why my daughter's been able to grasp so many new technologies in her daily life. So it's very interesting to see. So again, I'm Matt from the Boston team. I'll be one of the presenters today, and with me is Tom.
Hi there, Tom Schwartzman here, and I work with Matt out of the Boston Regional Office. I'm a solution engineer, which means that I really try to help you get the most out of your investment in GIS. And I've been doing that for a long time here, and enjoy working with state and local governments and other customers really all over the region.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. All right, so before we get started, just a couple things. Your line is muted, so we will be using the chat feature for questions that you guys can feed to us. And the seminar is being recorded. It will be given out to you guys a few days after the session is over, and it's going to come along with a survey. Any of the seminars we do, we have surveys because we always want to know how to improve both the material and the content we're bringing you, and just how it overall the seminars worked for you, so we can improve for next time. So that survey is very important for us to learn about how to improve this. It's a little bit different that we'd be doing the survey just for this webinar version, but we'd still be doing it for the face-to-face. So please fill out that survey. It helps us decide what material and how to bring it to you for the next seminar, because we do want to continue these. And another thing, this is really important, right? So these seminars are meant to be face-to-face, because one of the things that's the goal of the seminars is to bring the community together. So the community of the New York GIS together, the community of the Baltimore GIS groups together. And so we're missing that a little bit being virtual, but the turnout here today is already really incredible. And one of the ways we can continue that community, at least feel a little bit, is with using the chat feature, for one, for the questions, and two, there's going to be a few polls. There's not that many. There's just maybe 5 or 6 questions, but those questions are going to be about you and how you're using ArcGIS technology, and that helps us understand who's here and how to sort of communicate things as we go along with today's material. So again, use the chat feature. We've got a lot of moderators on today that are going to help answer some of those questions. And so here's who we have. We have Sarah Lynn from our Global Business Development Events team. We have William Myers, Solution Engineer, who'll be helping to answer some of the questions. Curtis Quigley, who's one of our training consultants. He'll be answering any training questions. And we have Harry Moore, another Solution Engineer, who will be answering questions as well. So what does the agenda look like? Well, it's a condensed version of what we were doing in the face-to-face. But it's still very packed. So we're going to cover what's new with Pro, of course, what's new with ArcGIS Online, StoryMaps, the new template. We're going to cover the solution templates, which I think are very important, especially with some of the new ones that have been recently released over the last few weeks. We're also going to take a short break, a 10-minute break for some question and answers. That's where our team here of moderators will come and answer those questions for you. And then we're going to go into ArcGIS in action. This is a really, really neat section. So instead of doing demonstrations of our software of here's dashboard, here's Pro, here's how all these different things, the features and functions, the ArcGIS in action is all wrapped around the scenario of a city and how different departments and agencies can use the technology to get their workflows done faster, share more collaboratively, all of the things that technology should bring to a growing community. So maybe some of these won't apply to you specifically in your particular role, but please stay through to the very end, because all the way through, because at the very end, we're going to cover in the closing and call to action section, we are going to cover some resources that are available to you to make you as successful as you can with deploying GIS, some resources on how to do the next steps of what you see today, like how to take those next steps, how to put it together, some really important information and resources. So stay all the way through the end. This is going to be a packed couple hours. I think we're going to be here together. And again, thank you so much for joining. All right, so we're going to start off with one first poll question. This is a simple one. So this is going to be simply, what industry do you work in? So I'm going to launch that poll, and if you can see it, please vote. Oh, good. I'm seeing some votes come in, so I know it's working correctly. I'm going to give it a minute or two just for those votes to roll in. Oh, thanks for everyone that's voting. Quite a few polls coming in already. And I'll share the results so we can all kind of look at it and see, again, as part of building that community, we can see who's on the line today with us and what the breakdown is. All right, it's been about a minute and we have a very significant amount of people that voted. So let's share those results and take a look. Okay, so quite a few folks from state and local for sure, a good number from federal, and a good mix of other things like education and consulting here, real estate, which is interesting. So again, as part of what we're doing today in the ArcGIS in action section, the scenarios and the demonstrations we're going to go through are kind of built around a city or a county, but believe me, those same workflows can be transitioned and translated into other industries as well. So again, thank you for everyone that voted and appreciate you being here. And now let's get into what the theme of today is. So the theme of this year's seminar is Amplify Your GIS. And I think we're all familiar with the definition of amplify as it relates to making something larger or greater, like when you drop a pebble into a pond and the ripples get larger and larger, or certainly increasing the strength of sound, right? That amplifying sound, making it bigger and greater. It might not seem like this is applicable to GIS, but it really is an industry term these days of amplifying something to make it greater or of more importance. And that's what today's theme is about. So why are we here today? Well, we're here again to make you more successful with our technology. You guys are customers with access to a whole bunch of stuff at your fingertips. And what we want to do today is give you a vision of how these different applications that you have as part of the platform can work together, how you can grow the importance of the work you do in your own organization. And we're going to discover what's new with ArcGIS, hopefully get inspired and learn how to be more effective. All right, so moving on. Getting right into it, or before we get into it, actually, let's talk about the specific product strategy we have. So the focus of our product strategy has always been on GIS and those ArcGIS products, which support the larger GIS community and, of course, the online mapping community. Well, in recent years, we've also opened up GIS even more to developers, of course, for them to build on and extend the platform. And now we're creating these new kind of systems, these things we call geo-enabled systems. We're going to talk a little bit more about these as well, but These are independent solutions. They build on and work with your GIS, and they focus on specific workflows and capabilities needed by very specific user communities and deliver them via really easy to use experiences. So we refer all of our work collectively as the Esri Geospatial Cloud. This is, of course, available as a software and a software as a service. And really the idea here is that anyone can be a GIS user. And as you amplify and grow your GIS, you can utilize any of these products here to help meet those individual needs. Okay, another key concept to understand is that ArcGIS is a comprehensive platform. It's open, it's services-based, it's extendable, and it supports not only those large organizations or teams, but also individuals. All right, a moment about those geo-enabled systems. I think if you've been working on any response efforts, you've certainly seen Hub and Business Analyst Infographics. And I also want to mention a few others that we call geo-enabled systems. So first up, Hub as a citizen engagement geo-enabled system. And then there's also things like indoor mapping through a product we call Indoors, and urban planning through Urban. If you've ever seen a demonstration of Urban, I think that's a good way to think about what a geo-enabled system is. It's powered by GIS, but it's separate and delivered as a workflow for a specific user group, in that case, planners, right? All right, so let's get right into what's new with ArcGIS. So first up, let's talk about Pro. Pro is widely used. It's broadly adopted now. We've made many, many new improvements. And here I've got a list of what some of those new improvements are and what's coming up next. I really want to point out where to go to find out if or when things are changing and what's going to be coming in the next release. So you can always follow that. This roadmap is always published from us on GeoNet. So if you search for or follow the ArcGIS Pro roadmap on GeoNet, you can see what's coming out next, what things we're working on, and be part of growing GIS at the next level. And of course, GIS or ArcGIS Pro can be extended, right? There's a number of focused capabilities for your desktop world, extensions like Image Analyst and Spatial Analyst that I think a lot of people are already familiar with. There's two areas I think I see really growing lately. It seems a lot of conversations I have around data reviewer, workflow manager, and data interoperability. So as GIS systems mature, people are looking at how to include these other extensions. And last year, when we launched our user seminars, we talked about Locate XT. That came out around the same time. So that's all about bringing unstructured data, discovering and extracting geocoordinates and place names and other information from that unstructured text and placing them instantly on a map. So that's another new extension we have. All right, let's get into it. So the features and improvements of Pro, they make workflows faster and ensure data quality. They allow you to work and share more efficiently, right? So Pro is the next step forward in GIS. And for those of you already using Pro, I think you're going to appreciate what's new in the latest version. And for those of you who aren't yet users, Tom is going to show you what Pro can do for you. All right, Tom.
All right. Let's start here with the startup screen of Pro. And you may be familiar with the screen where you can choose to open an existing project here or start a new project, and you can start from a template that's focused on a map or scene, or you can even start with a blank template that you can save later. I also wanted to point out this idea of project templates. Like these are the project templates that come with the software, but you can create your own and you can share them, and you can use ones that are shared with you. So I can actually go ahead and select another project template, and I can look on my hard drive, for instance, or here I'm logged into my portal, my ArcGIS Online account. Let's go to a group. And in this group, you can see that there's some templates here that have been shared. So maybe I'll pick one to start my project with. Now, the benefit of a project template is that it has some things preloaded for me. So I just use that project template, and you can see that I have a database connections. I might have layouts already installed, symbology all set for me, folder connections, all those things to make it easier to get started right away and be more efficient in Pro. Okay, but let's switch to a different, I have a couple instances of Pro running here, but let's switch to a different project. And here we're looking at the water system in Naperville, Illinois. And I want to focus for a few minutes on some editing workflows and tools that improve efficiency and ensure data quality. Now we're going to focus on fire hydrants. Let's go to this map. Let's zoom in a little bit more. You can see these fire hydrants on the map. They're actually labeled with their asset ID, FH, and then a number. And I want to start by just talking about a tool that's part of the attribute table, and that's a simple find and replace tool. So let me go ahead and bring up that tool. And I can very quickly find something in this table. So for instance, I'm looking for a specific asset ID. I can just type it in, and you can see it found it here. It highlighted it for me in the table. And you can see it found actually 11 records with that text, and you can see you can cycle through those. That search can be case sensitive, can be set to match the whole field, start a field, any part of the field, which is what we have here. I also can use this to replace values. So if my agency here were wanting to rename these hydrants, not starting with the prefix of FH, but maybe HYD for hydrant, I can ask the software to just go ahead and replace all those at once. And keep your eye on the table in this asset ID column, and also keep your eye on the map, because those labels are driven by that asset ID. And when this replacement is done, you see it's changed in the table, and it's also changed the labels on the map. It's just an easy way to get at data, to do that find and replace. Previously, you might have to do a calculation and understand some syntax to make that happen. This makes it a lot easier. So that's a nice little tool. All right, let's move on to editing. I want to actually add a feature of a fire hydrant to my map here, to my network. So I'm going to go into the edit ribbon, and I'm going to say I want to create features. And you'll see that I have some feature templates set up here on the right. Now those feature templates, you can make these, and the nice thing about them is they let you preset attributes for, say, different combinations of attributes for hydrants that you use. And it means the editor doesn't have to do that themselves. They can just pick up something that's sort of ready to go and add it to the map. Now there's one special type here called hydrant with service line, and this is something called a group template, and it lets us add more than one feature from more than one feature class at one time. And what I mean by that is, with one edit operation, I can draw a line representing the pipe that feeds this hydrant, and also have it put the hydrant at the end of this line. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click here, and I'll just put my hydrant there, and you can see both the line and the hydrant were placed. And if we go to the attributes, you can see there's the hydrant and there's the service line. But now we're looking at the attributes, and I want to talk about some things in the attribute table here, or in editing of attributes, that are going to help me. The first thing is something called contingent values. Now you're all probably familiar with the idea of domains or pick lists, and if we look at, say, manufacturer, you can see I've got this nice domain to go with manufacturer, and of course that's good because I don't want editors typing in things and spelling them wrong, etc. And I also have a domain here for the different nozzle diameter sizes. But what contingent values lets us do is tie those together, build a relationship between more than one attribute in its domain to make it smarter. And let me show you what I mean by that. Let's say I pick American Darling for the manufacturer. I get a full list of those diameters because American Darling makes all those sizes. But if I switch to another manufacturer, say Corey, you'll see that that list is now a lot smaller because Corey doesn't make those larger sizes. So I've restricted it to make sure that when you pick Corey, you only see the appropriate nozzle diameters. And that's a nice tool to keep that data quality up. And of course, data quality is important everywhere, but especially in something like this water network where you're talking about public safety as well. The other thing I want to show is something called attribute rules. Now, attribute rules do work for us, and in this case, they've actually figured out what service territory we're in, and they've assigned an asset ID. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but the attribute rules are driven by the Arcade scripting language. And if you're not familiar with the Arcade scripting language, it's a powerful language that we see across the ArcGIS the ArcGIS platform, including ArcGIS Online, Portal for ArcGIS, the JavaScript API, ArcGIS Pro, as you see here. And they're used for calculations, for attribute rules, for symbology, for labeling, all those things that you can use Arcade for. And in our case, for say the service territory, when I place this hydrant, Arcade actually queried the underlying service territories, which you can see in the different colors on my map, found that I was in the North Territory and filled that in for me automatically. And then in terms of the asset ID, it gave me a unique asset ID from the database. And these attribute rules can run when you add a new feature, when you edit features, when you delete features, and they can be used to do calculations like we're doing here, or they can be used for validation of values if you want. If you're familiar with ArcMap, there was something called the Attribute Assistant. This is sort of the next generation of that for Pro. I think it goes a little bit further in a lot of ways. And as Arcade gets more powerful, you'll see that these attribute rules will also become more powerful.
Awesome. All right, so you guys were given a sense of some of the new editing capabilities in Pro 2.5. So now let's see some of the capabilities with visualization. And to do that, we're going to take a look at crime data inside of Pro.
Thanks, Matt. So here in this project, we're in Washington, D.C., and those outlined polygons that you see are police service areas. Now, we also have crime data, so let's turn that crime data on. You can see there's a lot of it. It's about 35,000 points here, and it's maybe too much to really make sense of. So let's use a new visualization technique called binning. Binning allows us to overlay bins or polygons on top of our area of interest and have those bins symbolized by either the number of features inside each bin or some statistic about the features in that bin. And we enable that in the geoprocessing with a geoprocessing tool called Enable Feature Binning, where we select the layer type, the type of bin. You can see there are a couple different shapes that you see there. And then besides the count of features, any other summary statistics you might want, like the sum of damage, if you have a damage field, or the average number of fatalities, or whatever it might be, you can get those statistics. Now I've already done it for this layer, so let's go ahead and turn it on. You can see those bins. In my case, I picked these hexagons, and the darker colors represent more crimes in each bin. These bins are dynamic, so I can change their size if I want. And as I zoom in, you can see they'll also change size. And they also honor things like definition queries. Now we're looking at all crimes right now, but I could limit this to looking at theft from auto, and you can see how the bins dynamically change, which is nice. There's also a point you can set that when you zoom in far enough, you actually see the actual point locations on the map. And that's what you're seeing here. Why don't we go ahead and symbolize those, and we will use unique values based on the offense type. And you can see that it's just given some colored circle as symbols. Those aren't the symbols I want. So I could go to each one. I could say, well, okay, I have arson. I have an arson symbol, I think. Indeed, I do. But I don't really want to do that for every symbol. So let's use a new tool at Pro 2.5 that lets us do it all at once. And that's this matched layer symbology to a style. Here I've specified that layer in the field I'm interested in. And I'm going to point to a style. And where there's a match between the offense name and the symbol name, it will set the symbology for me. So all at once, you can see how we've modified those symbols, which is really a helpful tool. Okay, now this point data has a time or temporal aspect to it. So I just want to point out this chart type called a calendar heat chart. And I'll just specify the date field and how I want it symbolized, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, in this chart, we're looking at crimes, and the darker colors represent more crimes. But here we have hour of day across the bottom and day of week on the side. And so we can see the distribution in time of the data we have, which is a nice way to view it. We can also limit, as we did before, say to a specific crime type if we're interested. Use this definition query. Here I'm looking at just thefts from auto, and what I find interesting here is that most of those are reported between 8 and 9 a.m. when people go out to their cars to go drive to work and they realize something's happened, to their car. Okay, let's clear that out. And let's close our chart here. And let's change our focus to these police service areas. Now, I really want to view these with the information of all the crimes inside. And to do that, I would need to, overlay the crimes with their districts or service areas and do some summarizing to get counts by crime type, et cetera. And that's a couple steps of geoprocessing that I would do. It's not a big deal, but I do it fairly often. And I've already done it actually for this police service areas layer. But one thing that's new in 2.5 is I can take those steps that I did in the geoprocessing, and here they are in my history, some pivoting and joining and such, and I can highlight those, and I can just immediately turn that right into a model, right? So the history of my geoprocessing right into a model, that's pretty cool, right? Models are great because they document what you do, they let you share out your workflows, and they also are reusable. And just by doing it once and highlighting it, I can create that model, which is great. And from here, I could export to a Python script if I want. I could also export that here to a Python script. So lots of new ways to take some geoprocessing that you've done and turn it into something that's very easy to reuse. And if you like Python, I want to make sure I mention the fact that at Pro 2.5, we now have the ability to create and edit Jupyter notebooks right inside of Pro. It used to be the case that you'd have to open Jupyter notebooks externally, and now that is not the case. Here I am in Jupyter notebooks, and if you're not familiar with that, it's a great way to interactively work in Python because it's access to all the libraries you might want, the ArcPy library, ArcGIS API for Python, any other Python libraries you might have. And I can step through my code step by step and actually have it actually do the Python. So that's really great. It's a new feature at 2.5 and really, really useful. So keep that in mind. All right, let's go back to our map here. And now let's symbolize this layer based on, well, instead of doing like a color ramp of number of crimes or something, let's use a new symbology type here, and that is chart symbologies in Pro. I'm going to make these pie charts, and we'll add a couple things to our pie, maybe different types of crime, burglary, robbery, and theft from auto. All right, not my favorite colors, but it'll do, I guess. That's probably worse. But so you can see those pies here, and you can see that they have they're all the same size. So let me change that so that we have the sizes being relative to the number of crimes. So the bigger the pie is as a whole, the more number of crimes, and then of course the distribution of crimes by the pie slices. And then I can also, if I want, change it, make it a 3D if I want. So that's just some cool ways that we can visualize this data using that new chart type. Now, another way you might want to look at these police service areas is temporally or through time. So we've got this nice scene here with those same police service areas symbolized by the number of crimes, the darker colors and the higher the symbol, the more crime. And I've actually sliced this up by week, so you can actually step through this week by week and see at any given week what it might look like. Now, some improvements in animation, in the animation framework at 2.5 have given us some tools to create really smooth videos with regard to, say, vertical exaggeration and such. And let me show you a real quick one that we put together with this data. Same service areas, and now we're looking at crimes against property throughout the year, people, and vehicles. So it's just another nice way to be able to visualize that data and to share that information with others.
Definitely. All right. Thanks, Tom. That was quite a bit you covered there. So that was what's new with editing. Then we just showed you visualization. Now let's take a look at how you can share a little bit better. And to do that, Tom, I think you've got some stuff that's really unique and exciting in this latest version.
Thanks, Matt. So in terms of sharing, there's this nice share ribbon in Pro, and it lets me do a lot of things. One thing I might want to do is wrap up all the information about the map I'm looking at right here and create what's called a map package. And then I can share that map package with either, I can write it to a file on my hard disk and then I can share it that way, but I could also upload it to my portal and share it through the portal, and then other people can download it and start working with the map right away. You also have the ability to package up the whole project if you have lots of maps and layouts and such in the project. So that's another way you could do it. Of course, sometimes we need actual output. So we have always had the ability to add a new layout, and here are all these different page sizes, and you can import a layout file which has sort of a layout design on it or in it. But new at 2.5 is this import layout pull down, and it gives us access to a gallery of those layout files. And with the software, we give you about 12 of those, and you can see the first 12 here, the first 3 rows, are those that come with the software. You can move that that gallery anywhere you want. You might put it on a network drive so that you can share it with everyone in your organization. You can add and delete layouts from that, so you're not stuck with the 12 that you see here. You can remove ones you don't like. You can add ones of your own. In fact, I've added one of my own here at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and click that to bring it into my project. And all I have to do is specify what map goes inside that map frame, and I'm ready to roll with this layout that I had built or was built for me. I can go ahead and use it. So that's a really useful tool to be able to do. Now, in terms of printing, let's go back to that share ribbon. I'm going to hit this print. This used to pop up in a dialog, but now it shows up in a pane that you can dock wherever, and it gives you access to, it does a couple things, that pane. It gives you access to more characteristics of your printer, so you don't have to dig through printer menus as much. It gives you this, if you need to tile it because your printer doesn't support large paper, it gives you a preview of that tiling, which is nice, and it also prints in the background, which is new, so that's great. In terms of layout exporting, let's switch to PDF here. You can see all these different formats we support. PDF, we've added some new options with regard to putting passwords on your PDF. So passwords for opening, passwords for being able to edit or and being able to copy, etc. There's another new file type at 2.5 called AIX. And that's an Esri format, and it stands for Adobe Illustrator Exchange. So this writes out a file that can be imported by Adobe Illustrator using the Maps for Adobe Creative Cloud plugin from Esri, which is free. And it gives your graphics professionals a big jumpstart into working with this file and taking it further in the design process. It layers things appropriately and makes it easy for them to work with. So that's a new thing. One more thing I think I want to show in layouts, and that is the ability to reshape graphics on your layout. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Here you have this map of the Nile, and you have some text that describes the map, and the text kind of overlaps those features, so it's a little bit hard to read. So let's select this text box. I'm going to right click, and I want to say that I want to edit the vertices of that, and that gives us a little vertex editing toolbar, and you may be familiar with this toolbar. It's something like what you'd see when you're editing actual features. Okay, I want to hover over this left edge of my text box, and I'm going to change it from a straight line to a curve. Now, once I've done that, I'm now going to insert a vertex and drag that over. Maybe I'll insert one down here, drag that over, maybe tweak this a little bit like that. And just with a few clicks, I've made this a much better cartographic product, and makes it really a really great tool to be able to do that to all the different types of things you put on the layout.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. All right, so normally if we did these face-to-face, I think there's a lot of, or at least there's a few times where people would clap and appreciate what you showed, because you showed quite a bit there in the I think it was about 15 minutes we took. You showed find and replace, feature bidding, match by attribute, and how about geoprocessing history and Jupyter notebooks, the chart symbology as well. So there's a lot we just went through. So this is probably one of the bigger demos. Again, there's a lot in Pro to follow and to do, and this is where we get most of our questions. So, but what does that overall mean, right? It means really Pro makes workflows faster. It ensures data quality. We're constantly improving how to make the work go more efficiently. And just consider how all of this makes Pro your go-to desktop for doing all this, for visualization and for advanced analysis. All right. Moving on, I think it makes sense that we should have a little poll question on Pro. So this is an easy one. Question is, are you using ArcGIS Pro, yes or no? And again, I'll give a few, maybe a minute, maybe two
Hey
to
Matt,
answer this one.
can I mention something? It's one thing I forgot to mention, sort of off script a little bit, but it's relevant in today's times, and that is when I was talking about geoprocessing, I meant to mention that we've just recently released some geoprocessing tools that let Pro be a front end and look at the results from a model, a pandemic model, the CHIME model, which is a hospital impact model for epidemics from the University of Pennsylvania, and we'll get that link out, but I just wanted people to know that that geoprocessing can go well beyond our stuff internally. Here we've linked it to that CHIME model in this time, and it's being used by a lot of people to do some predictions around hospital beds and things like that. So just maybe worth noting.
Yes, and that's also a recent addition, correct? Over the last
Correct.
maybe 2 weeks?
2 weeks or so, that's right.
Yep.
I think you're about right.
All right. We have quite a number of answers already in for this poll, so I'm going to stop the polling now, and it's an interesting mix. I'm going to share those results with you guys. So it's a weird. I've never seen it quite a 50-50 mix. It's usually been higher that Pro's been adopted these days, but I'm sure there's lots of reasons for that. So I do want to follow up with a follow-up question for folks, which is the reasons for you using or not using ArcGIS Pro. So I'm going to launch a new question for you guys. Probably not going to share these results, just for my own information, if I could see why you are choosing to use Pro, or is there something prohibiting you from using it? And there we go. So, all right, good questions or answers are coming in, so I know it's working.
One comment here is that you have to enter both. I think you have to enter both. Put an answer for both the first and second question before you can submit.
Correct. There's a NA for yes and an NA for no. I'll give it a few more moments. And this is multiple choice, by the way, this particular one. There might be more than one reason you are using Pro, and there might be more than one reason you might not be able to use Pro yet. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to keep up with all the chats I saw coming through. I wasn't able to follow them, so hopefully the moderators are keeping up, which is why we have so many on the call today. And please feel free to continue to use the chat feature to ask those questions and get clarification if we need to. And again, this video will be made available after a few days. We'll send out the link to this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I think stop the polling now. It's the mix of answers is sort of all over the board. It's a good mix of why people are choosing to go to Pro, almost even across the board, and then for no, mostly as well. So it's interesting results from that. Okay, I bet that I should have asked the poll question too. Hey, if we just talked about Pro, what are we going to talk about next? And most people would guess that that's going to be ArcGIS Online, right? So ArcGIS Online, it is by itself a complete mapping and location platform. It's got millions of viewers creating billions of views with their own maps. And there's lots of new improvements, I think, which we're going to talk about. And it's important to really remember that ArcGIS Online is that foundation. It provides that foundation for amplifying your GIS, right? It allows you to have access, that, capabilities that allow access for anyone, anywhere, anytime on any device. That's the real power of ArcGIS Online and what it brings to this overall idea of growing your GIS with new users. And then there's StoryMaps, right? StoryMaps provide the ability to create powerful and compelling stories, combining narratives with maps and photos, videos, and of course other multimedia. And StoryMaps Builder is the next generation storytelling tool, making it even easier to create that map. And it has a mobile first approach to design and performance. And of course, StoryMaps are powered by ArcGIS Online, which is one of the most effective ways to amplify your GIS. Is really a lot of people without any GIS experience can start using StoryMaps right away. Okay, let's talk about the map viewer for a moment. So the needs and use cases were ever evolving with ArcGIS Online. And while many new applications and solutions were created to meet those demands, the map viewer always remained the same. So we've worked to recently enhance that user experience with the map viewer, and the map viewer beta is the next generation of the map making tool for ArcGIS Online and Enterprise. This is built by using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript 4X. It supports improved functionality and new features, and it's fast and intuitive. So let's take a look.
Okay, well, that's the Chime model, isn't it? Okay, so we'll get that link out to you about the Chime model tools. Okay, so back to the online, the map viewer, even though it's still in beta, you have access to it and can start using it today. And there are a few different ways to access this new map viewer. So if you have an existing map like I have here, I can click on these little 3 dots and say open in map viewer beta, or I can go to my app launcher, which is this little tic-tac-toe board at the top here by my login, and I can pick it here. Let's go ahead and pick it. Everyone nervous? We know this is a big change. It's a big change for us as well, and it's also an exciting change because this new map viewer has a whole host of new capabilities that are only going to be expanded on from here on out. Now it has a fresh new look and feel, and it has been designed to provide a logical left to right workflow when you're authoring a web map. On the left are base tools like adding layers and base maps, saving, printing. And on the right, you have functions for refining those layers. So layer property styles, filters, pop-ups. Let's go ahead and start by adding some data. So I'm going to go ahead and add a layer. And I'll go to my organization. And I'm going to add this demographic layer to the map. This is actually a counties in the US with demographic information, and it comes from the Living Atlas, which is a large set of curated layers made available to you inside of ArcGIS Online. You really should take a look and use them because there's lots and lots of layers all around infrastructure and census type thing, demographics and natural resources and all kinds of great stuff. So I encourage you to look at that. This particular layer has population information, both 2018 and estimates for 2023. And I want to use it to answer some questions around where people are moving the most and what places are really growing quickly. But before we do that, let's go ahead and set a different base map. I actually like this dark gray canvas vector tile base map. It takes the emphasis off the base map and puts it on the data itself, which is nice. All right, now we're going to start working with this layer. So the first thing, you can see some general things about this layer, like I could shut its legend off or on. You can see that over on the left. I can change its transparency, and you see how that happens immediately. I get immediate feedback, which is nice. And I could change when it draws, what scales it draws at. Okay, that's fine. But now let's actually style this layer. So let's go ahead and use one of the attributes. I'm going to pick a field. Now I got lots of fields, and I can just filter that down by typing in something here, and I'll pick the 2018 total population. Now by default, what I get is these counts and amounts by size. So the bigger circle represents more people in each county, but let's change that to dot density, and that's a new mapping style here. And the idea of dot density is within each polygon, each dot represents some number, population, count of incidents, or whatever it might be, to help us see that. And they're distributed randomly throughout the polygon, which is nice. And we have some control over that as well. Like we could change its color if we wanted, and we could change the dot value if we wanted to, etc. So that's one way to do it, and it helps us see where population is, but not necessarily where things are growing quickly. So let's change this from the field that was just total population in a year to the growth rate between those 2 years. And what we're going to get is a different map here that will shade these based on color ramps. And it's picked a color ramp appropriate for my base map. And you can see I have some choices there as well. I can change the style, lots of colors and, that I could pick from for the ramps. And also how I can change how the colors are distributed. But I'll leave it as it is now. And we can see that there are areas that have high growth rates, but I'm not interested, and some with low, in fact, some with negative even. I'm not interested in all of these, so I want to filter these down. So we're going to use this filter tool, and we're going to build an expression that is basically, I'm only looking for areas with a high annual growth rate. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see the distribution of the growth rates immediately in this nice histogram. And I can take this slider and I can slide it, and you can see the map reacts as I use it to filter things out. Now I want to filter things that have a growth rate of 2% or higher. So I can either type it in here or I can use the slider to do it, and we'll save that. Now this is helping me because it shows me areas with high growth rate, but it doesn't tell the whole story because I still don't know whether that high growth rate involves a lot of people or a few people. So for instance, here in North Dakota, I'm guessing that these counties are fairly rural, and while the growth rate annual growth rate, the percentage may be high, it doesn't mean that there's a lot of people involved in that. And if we look, say, at somewhere outside DC or something, we might expect that to be a little different. So let's go ahead and visualize that by going back to our styles. Now, I don't have information about the total number of, I don't have a field with the total number of people, the difference between 2023 and 2018, but I do have that information, so I can calculate that using Arcade with an Arcade expression. I'm going to hit this expression button. It's going to throw me into the Arcade editor. I'll give this, my expression, a title or a name, and I'll put a formula in here. And it's a pretty simple one. There's lots you can do, and I'm not going to get into Arcade so much here, but this one is just calculating the difference between the future year and the current year populations, right? So the difference in population, the population growth. And now we have two things going on. The size of our circle represents that population change, number of people, and the brightness of blue, the lighter the blue, represents a higher growth rate. And if I say done to that, now if we go back to, say, North Dakota, you see these circles aren't very large, right? We have a high growth rate, but not a lot of people. And again, if we go back to, say, outside of DC, you can see that indeed we have high growth rates and we have lots of people involved. So that's pretty cool. So now in terms of this web map, let's talk about one other thing, and that is the ability to customize these pop-ups. Pop-ups have always been a really important part of a great web map. And in this new map viewer, we're giving you more freedom and control over those pop-ups. So rather than thinking about pop-ups as a series of choices, we allow you to mix and match those different types of content. So let me go to the pop-up here, and you see I have this attribute list. I'm only showing one attribute, but let's add a text box, and let's put in some text. And when I say okay, you can see how that pop-up immediately shows me that change, and maybe I'll remove the attributes as well. So very quickly, I've been able to help answer my question with the data by looking at different ways of styling and filtering the maps, being able to present it well with a good pop-up. And I could share this into ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. I could print it, put it in a web app builder app, or maybe an operations dashboard. But one of my favorite ways to combine my map with other media is with other media, maps, and text to tell a more complete story.
All right, Tom is definitely hinting at StoryMaps, right? And so what we want to do is talk a little bit about the new StoryMaps builder. So StoryMaps have always been around for a very long time through ArcGIS Online. They've been much used to inform and inspire people with stories that involve maps and location. And over the years, the StoryMaps team have made lots of incremental improvements to that experience, introducing new templates, improving on existing ones. Um, Over the last year, though, the StoryMaps team introduced something very different, and that is the StoryMaps Builder, which Tom is showing here. And this wasn't so much one of those incremental changes as it was a giant leap forward. And before I say anything else, just a quick but important note that the story map templates that you know and love are not going away anytime soon. So this new story map builder that Tom is showing contains many capabilities from those classic storytelling templates, but there's also dozens of new features, new capabilities added with each new release. So the ultimate goal several years from now is to eventually combine all of the things our customers like most about the story map templates into one single flexible builder. So Tom, maybe that's enough with the quick sausage making there. Maybe we can see one that you've already put together.
Yeah, okay. So you saw me just spend a minute there building out something, but let's take a look, as Matt said, at a sort of finished version of that. And you can see that I've got this information that helps really start this off, this title page, if you will, and some information about what we're talking about. Here's that sidecar I put in. This sidecar has these two maps. This first map that has our dot density map and some information about the map. And then as we scroll by, that map will flip and change to our second map, which you saw me put in. This is the annual growth rate map. And in this particular story map, we've added, you can see some images, some charts, some links to dashboards. And then this is a slideshow map, which actually lets us cycle through different locations in the map and pop up information about it. So just with a few, just in a few minutes, you can build a really compelling story to share this information with those constituents you want to affect.
All right, awesome, Tom. Thank you. So the Story Maps builder during its beta period was highly used. A lot of folks gravitated towards that to check it out. And the comments and ideas from that beta experience resulted in many of the improvements that you just saw. And we encourage all of you to be part of that if you want to through participation in our early adopter program. And we want to help make the future of GIS with you with either this product or other ones. So thanks to those that do participate in the early adopter program and provide feedback. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the solution templates. ArcGIS Online, or ArcGIS includes 450 map and app configurations we collectively refer to as ArcGIS solutions. And these solutions are free, they're open, their technical support is included with your maintenance program. They are supported just like any of our other products because that's sort of what they are, right? They are a solution is a packaging of whatever technologies we have that fit a particular workflow. So that might be, just a dashboard with Survey 123. It could be an analytics workflow. It could be a whole bunch of things. So, but solutions are those things exactly. They're packaged solutions around a particular workflow, and it could be a number of different things that work together to make that happen. They're an excellent and easy way to sustainably amplify your GIS by rolling out new solutions with a very low cost of ownership. We're going to talk about some of these things later on, but I do want to call your attention to the very first two things here on the left side of the screen. What we have, these new solutions that were spun up. One is the coronavirus response solutions, and the other is the business continuity solution. So this is a good example of how quickly a solution can be put together. Again, it's not necessarily new technology. It's using the ArcGIS technology pieces in a particular way to support something. So in the case of coronavirus response, there's a solution template put together that is a series of applications and dashboards to communicate response. We also released a business continuity solution recently. That is a collection of maps and apps around helping businesses, utilities, and governments understand the capacity of their workforce and operational status of those facilities as they're affected by the disease. And then having an understanding of what that workforce capacity is, the facility status is as people adapt to ensure business continuity. And I think if you guys can think about this, if you're using our technology to respond to coronavirus and we have these solutions built as the phases of the coronavirus response change of the overall status changes, you'll see more solutions that fit those next phases. So, if any of you are in emergency management, you've got response as one, you've got recovery as another phase. So I think it'd be a safe bet to know that if you're using our technology for one of these phases, as those phases changes, you'll see new solutions roll out. So I do want to call your attention to at least the first two that are out, which is the coronavirus response solution and the business continuity solution. What I want to do is, actually, Tom, I'm going to have you, I guess, we want to go through how the solutions page is set up, where to find solutions, what they look like, how they're organized, and then talk a little bit about the deployment tool as well.
All right. So here I am on the solutions page, and you can see, maybe you can see the URL solutions.arcgis.com. And this is organized to help you find solutions based on whether you're in a local government, state government, different focuses. You can also just search for one by keywords if you want. We'll come back to these two, the coronavirus solution in a minute. I just want to show you, like, if we look at the local government, you can see how they've been broken up into different categories. So land records, water utilities, public works, emergency management, et cetera. Health and human services. And if we dig into that, you can see things about opioids and vector-borne disease and things like that, and the COVID-19 stuff as well. So lots of solutions that will help you get your job done. And as Matt mentioned, and as you saw on the previous page here at the top, we have these two solutions around supporting the COVID-19 pandemic. And if we look at, say, we dig into one of those, this is the response solution, including lots of things for dashboards, for surveys and reports and such, to allow you to really share the information you want with the public. And you can use all or some of this as it makes sense to you. And these are all part of your ArcGIS subscription. Now, the way we deploy these is pretty much the same for all of these. They start with this tool, this ArcGIS Solutions deployment tool, and it's an add-in, a free add-in for Pro, and allows you to browse the catalog of the ArcGIS solutions and deploy them to online or enterprise organization. And during that deployment, the tool will create any items, groups, feature layers, maps, apps, surveys, etc., that the solution needs. After you deploy them, you can modify them to suit your needs, and if you need to load existing data into a solution, of course, you can do that too. So that coronavirus solution, any other solutions that you find here can be deployed with really just one click of a button in Pro. And in the future, it will get even easier. We have a plan to allow you to be able to deploy these solutions directly through ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise.
All right, thanks, Tom. So let's take one poll question, and this one's going to be about our solutions. So launch this now, and then I'm going to read the question for you guys. So we talked through a few different solution templates, and we're interested to know which ones have you guys already deployed. And so this is multiple choice as well, so you can choose more than one if you've deployed more than one. And if a category, if it doesn't kind of fit, I think just pick the closest one that makes sense. And we'll give a minute or two for this. And thank you for everyone that's participating in this. This really does help, I think, let us know that you guys are out there. I see a lot of stuff coming through the chat. Again, I haven't read everything, but I'm glad to see that there is a lot of communication going on and interest in the things we've shown thus far. So thank you for all staying through. And we're almost up to our break, I'll let you know. And then after this poll question, I'm gonna introduce what we're gonna do next for the second half of this seminar and take it from there. So just a few more minutes on this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the polling. And I'm going to share this with everyone so we can see what it looks like together as the group. So yeah, we got some in local government, some in state government, a lot in emergency management, gas and water. Yeah, a nice mix of different ones throughout what's been deployed so far. But again, I just want to highlight that the solutions are just that. And when Tom was showing the one coronavirus response solution, there's that whole list of applications that come with it. That's, I think, the important thing to get across is that solutions are more than one thing. They're a packaging of what's needed to respond to a workflow or thing that's happening. So just keep that in mind. And that if you're looking for a particular solution, and you're looking at our solutions page and you don't find one, just reach out to your account team and we'll help find out the flow that works the most or is close enough fit for you guys, and see how that can work for you. So again, thank you for that, everyone that voted for that poll question. I really appreciate it. So did everyone take a breath? Did everyone take a break and ready to sort of reset? I do want to mention that, so we're at about the halfway point. So there's just about an hour left in the seminar, and we've got two big sessions coming up. One is the ArcGIS in action section, and then there's the closing and call to action, both very important. So in this next section is the ArcGIS in action, and again, this would have been done a little bit differently when we were in person. There's a lot of back and forth between Tom and myself doing the live demos as they happen from, Tom's in the office as an administrator and I'm out in the field running the field tools. So we had to change it a little bit for this particular, doing it as a webinar instead. So bear with us as part of its video instead of live demo, but I think we can get through it all and you'll see how the pieces connect and work together. So just a quick note that we had to change how we were originally presenting these demonstrations to fit the webinar in a short amount of time, but we'll get through it. And first up is going to be GIS and law enforcement. So we know that individuals in law enforcement typically don't get GIS-specific training, so getting them set up for success right from the beginning is going to save a lot of time in their day-to-day. And there are two ways you can support this department. So first and foremost is to get the data accurate by geo-enabling those records in the records management system so it can then be used for analysis. And secondly, you can showcase that data using a dashboard. The first workflow we're going to walk you through is how to geo-enable that crime data. Then you can export from your CAD RMS system and even get it in a scheduled import of your data on whatever interval works for you. With that data now, you can now map and analyze and build needed applications. So we're going to switch over to Tom, who's going to show you how to get this set up.
Okay, I'll switch in a sec, but I just want to say that, crime analysts work with a lot of data that can and should be mapped, and something we hear from analysts is it can take half a day to get an export of crime data from their CAD RMS system, prep the data, geocode it, which are all steps that have to happen before they can even begin doing basic mapping. A lot of our time is spent preparing the data rather than using it, but with some simple tools, you have the power to make this workflow more efficient. And if you can save your crime analysts some time, they'll be able to focus on analyzing that data and keeping our community safe. Now, it's very common for a crime analyst to get an Excel spreadsheet like like the one you're seeing here. That might come once a week or once a month from that CAD RMS system. This particular spreadsheet shows new crimes from the Rochester, New York Police Department open data site for October 2019, and it has about 700 records in it. Now in Pro, I've installed this crime analysis toolbar, which is a free add-in, and this toolbar supports many common crime analyst workflows, has tools for data management, tactical and strategic analysis, and investigative analysis. Even though the toolbar was designed for crime analysts, a lot of the tools are useful even for law enforcement workflows. Now I'm signed into my ArcGIS Online organization, and I've opened up a web map that you see here, this Rochester Police Department crimes web map. And this web map shows crimes from 2017 through September of 2019, and includes the different crime types that you see there in the legend. And I need to update this layer with that data from October. Now, right now we're looking at about 25,000 crimes in Rochester, New York, and it's kind of a mess and hard to see anything and come to any conclusion. So let's focus on the Maplewood Historic District. I'm just going to zoom there. It's in northwestern Rochester, and let's update our crime data and see if we can see any patterns emerging. Now, as I mentioned, the crime analysis toolbars comes with tools designed to support those workflows of your analysts, and they frequently need to import and process new data. So we created a tool for this workflow called Import Records, and that's right here. But to use that tool, we need to build a configuration file. So we're going to use this tool to set up that configuration file. And there are two versions of this tool. One, if your data already has XY, it could be latitude and longitude information, location information. The other is if you have, say, an address only, and then it would add an extra step of taking that address and geocoding it, turning it into a point on the map. Now I know my data actually has XYs, so I'm going to bring up the XY tool here, and I'm going to build this configuration file, or at least show you how to do it. We give it a name, import crimes. We tell it where to find the data we want to import, the source table. In our case, it's that Excel spreadsheet we're just looking at. And then where are we loading these crimes into? In this case, it's our RPD crimes. This happens to be a hosted feature layer in ArcGIS Online. It didn't have to be, but it is in this case. And because of that, I need to give a username and a password, and I need to specify the directory where the information about the import will be stored. So let me specify that folder. And then I need to point to the unique identifier field for the record. And in our case, it's case number and the field that holds the date. And those are used when we import. I'll talk about that in a minute. Where are the X and Y field information? In my case, I have fields called longitude and latitude. And those happen to be in a geographic coordinate system. And then all my field names are the same. So this would save that configuration file, and I've already done that. So I'm going to go ahead and now do the import. So I'm going to go to the import tool. I'm going to point to the configuration file that I saved. And let me open up the attribute table here. Before I do this import, you see there's 24,651 records. So we're going to go ahead and ask it to do the import. It's actually trying to make sure I don't have duplicates. So wherever it looks at the case numbers, and if there's an existing case number, then it looks at the dates to see whether I have updated information, and it will replace as needed. So that prevents me from having duplicates. And you can see it's going in, it's doing the work and bringing in those records into in this case, this hosted feature layer, but it could be in an enterprise geodatabase or whatever. Okay, so that finished, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this map and refresh this table. Keep your eye on that number at the bottom, 24,651. You might see some changes on the map. So I'm going to hit this refresh, and you see now it says 25,342. So we brought in all those records from the spreadsheet. The map maybe has updated. We'll take a look at that in a minute. I can also, if I want, I can show you that happened by just filtering down to only the October dates. And you can see 691, that's the same as our spreadsheet, and the map represents now only those October ones. So I feel good about that import. That seemed to go well. Let's now look at a trend, and we'll zoom in on this location. We go to a bookmark here, Albemarle Street. And I want to look at these 4 houses in a row that have crimes on them. And if we can click on them, we can see that certainly a couple of these have happened in that October timeframe. So why is this useful? Well, it could be a new pattern emerging, and maybe a criminal is surveilling the area and identifying easy houses to target. Now, crime doesn't happen uniformly, and since many law enforcement agencies are strapped for resources, you can use GIS to identify problem locations and more effectively deploy your resources while still having a huge impact on the overall community. All right, one other thing I want to show in Pro is another chart type that's a temporal or time-related chart, and that's something called a data clock. So let me create a chart. Let me create this data clock, and let me just point it to the date field. And it's basically going to build a chart that represents, I can specify how I want it to be viewed, but in this case, I've got the months going around the outside of the circle, each slice of the circle, and the years represented by the concentric circles 2017 on the inside, and 2019 on the outside. And I can look at temporal trends here as well, and the darker colors represent more crimes. I can also set this up to only chart what is in the current map extent. So I could do that. And the chart changes, as you can see. That trend for that summer doesn't always hold throughout the whole town. And as I move my map, you see how that updates as well. We can go back to the whole chart. So that's a pretty cool way of being able to visualize that temporal data.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it. And I think the important thing is what you mentioned in the beginning is that doing all this took a half day's work down to a single click. And now let's see what we can do by applying automation to make this even better.
Yeah, so you saw me click on this run tool to do that import. But new at Pro 2.5 is the ability to actually schedule the running of these geoprocessing tools and models and such. So here I'm going to hit the schedule button, and I get a dialog where I can specify, say, a name of a task, but also how often I want it to run. Maybe I want it to run weekly on Mondays and Thursdays because I get updates. And with one click, I can just go ahead and schedule that to run and automatically have that happen without me having to deal with it at all. Now, I also want to mention that ArcGIS Insights is another product that offers powerful spatial and non-spatial analysis. We found that Insights is a great option for agencies that don't have a crime analyst, but do have a sworn officer that needs to do some basic mapping. And we'll go over an example of Insights in one of the later demos. It's also important to remember that there are people in your law enforcement agency that don't need to do analysis, but still need access to the data for situational awareness. And web apps are a great way to provide that access. So let's go back here to our beta map viewer. And now here you can see we're looking at the same web map that we were looking at earlier. And if we zoom into Albemarle Street, we can see those 4 houses that we were looking at. Now I can configure the pop-ups. I can add layers to this map. I can use this web map in other applications like an operation dashboard or Insights for ArcGIS.
Yeah, so how many folks are already using dashboards? I wish I could ask that question and see everyone respond with a resounding yes, and not just one dashboard, but multiple dashboards. Dashboards are extremely helpful to give a quick status of the data, the assets, and the projects that are happening. Command staff and law enforcement love dashboards because they give that high-level overview and an ability to explore the data immediately. So dashboards could be used in briefings with their own teams, with other stakeholders, and also the public. So let's look at an example here that the city of Philadelphia built. And this is just demonstration data only. This isn't real data here. But this gives the user a way to explore that data, ask questions, and as Tom's clicking around these different categories, information's updating dynamically. And at the end of it, you can now see high and low times for larceny over the last 28 days and a potential pattern starting to merge. And this is why dashboards are so helpful. I'm going to take over for 1 second, if you don't mind, Tom. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just want to show something a little bit different here for a moment. And that is, beyond what we've shown you today, there's so much more you can do with ArcGIS to support the law enforcement team. Many of the workflows already have out-of-the-box solutions that we talked about that you can stand up easily and quickly with minimum customization. And these apps were created with Esri staff and customers in law enforcement or with a law enforcement background. I've highlighted some of these here so you can take a look and see these in the ArcGIS Solutions page. And what did we do? So we showed you how you can geo-enable that crime data, do analysis with it in Pro, put it in a dashboard, and that ArcGIS really provides law enforcement with a single platform that provides support for many different missions. All right, that's the law enforcement section. Next, we're going to move into, I think, a really fun one because of how many tools are sort of going to be presented here really quickly. And I do want to mention this is the demonstration where we had to change quite a bit. So I hope the workflow works for you guys and are able to follow along as well as this was presented in the face-to-face presentations. So let's talk about public works. Street infrastructure is critical to the operation of a city or a county, and the Public Works Department are the folks tasked with making sure that roads stay in good condition by planning for that long-term maintenance, as well as to avoid more costly repairs or even replacement. So let's review some of the key works in this department. First up is our field crew. And field crews are out there spending their time performing inspections, overseeing repair work, and they're filling out lots and lots of pavement condition forms, and then they're turning those over to their supervisor. And here we have that supervisor at Public Works. They're essentially the chief operating officer for the department. They report to the Public Works director and also have frequent engagement with the city manager, the mayor, and also those city council members. So work's been piling up because the city's growing. There's increasing demands on the street infrastructure, and the supervisor spends a lot of time taking those forms you see on the desk there and entering them into a spreadsheet. And then just because they have so much to do, so much on their plate, they're inundated with work, and they live by the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mantra. And here we have our GIS manager. After meeting with that Public Works director, they see the struggles they're dealing with, and meeting with the fieldwork team, they know there's an easy way to optimize all those workflows for both the field crew and the office staff, because everything they're doing is impacted by location. So I think the important thing is, though, for Public Works to even consider listening to the GIS manager, that GIS manager knows they must provide a solution that doesn't increase the workload. It frees up time for both the director and the field crews and helps those administrators make better, more justifiable decisions. So let's see a little bit more.
Now, our field crews and supervisor aren't just sitting around all day looking for problems in the street. They need a modern way to learn where problems exist. And so let's take a look at a couple ways we can leverage feedback from the public for this. One is through Waze, and through their Connected Citizens program, cities and counties can form a partnership with Waze to provide and receive authoritative information in near real time. Citizens can report incidents like potholes, which then can go directly into a Public Works in a dashboard like this. In fact, this dashboard from Lakeland, Florida is live. Now, likewise, the department can report upcoming road closures to Waze, which recognizes them as an authoritative source for the city and can update their map accordingly. Now, many cities and counties have a 311 system in place, and if so, it's usually easy to take the output of those systems and bring them into your GIS for further analysis and mapping. And if your city doesn't have, or county doesn't have a 311 system in place, there's a configurable app available as an ArcGIS solution called the Citizen Problem Reporter. Now, it's optimized for mobile devices, and it provides an app for the public to report issues, and also includes an internal-facing manager app that allows the supervisor to get a summary of those reports. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm just going to click in here. Now, this one is set up to accept all different kinds of citizen problem reports, and you can configure which ones you want to expose. And here we'll go to road problems, and none in my current area right now, so I'm going to submit one. And this list of different road problem types you can configure as well. This is a pothole, and maybe I'll just say a deep pothole. And I can give my information and locate this. Again, I can use my location, or I can click on the map or type in an address, and then I can report it. And that will just go right into, can work its way right into the back office systems. I can also add a photo if I were, say, on my phone or something like that. I can do it here, but I don't have a good photo. Okay, now this is a way we can get information about where work needs to be done, but we also need to think about how supervisors can prioritize these projects, and our field crew can update information in the field. So that Public Works, supervisor needs to be able to dispatch those field crews in an efficient manner. And right now, that's just done in a morning meeting, and the supervisor's not likely to see the crew until the end of the day. Workforce is an app that provides an easy way for supervisors to assign those projects to crews and track their status. So here I am in Workforce. I'm in a browser, and I'm in Workforce, and I'm in that supervisor or dispatcher mode, and I can see all the work that's going on in my area. And I'm going to create a new assignment for Matt in the field. So I'm go ahead and create an assignment. And now I've got a couple assignment types that I've created. You configure this. So this is going to be a PCI survey, which is a pavement condition index. I can click on the map, or I can put in an address for the location. So we'll go ahead and do that. I will assign it to Matt, who's here somewhere. You listed there, Matt?
Right
There
at the
you
top
are.
there.
Yep. And this is critical. I want it done tomorrow morning, first thing. And I'll give it, I don't have to, but I'll give it a work order ID and maybe some comments. And then I'll just go ahead and create assignment. And that will get pushed then to Matt, who's in the field. And we're going to switch over from the dispatcher or supervisor view to Matt's view in the field on his device. Now, as Matt mentioned, for logistical reasons, it's really hard for us to show you an iPad and switch back and forth easily. So we have a video that Matt and I are going to walk or talk you through. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Matt in the field on his iPad. You ready, Matt?
I am. Yeah,
All
so
right.
Tom was showing you the dispatcher view. There's just two pieces to Workforce, right? The dispatcher view where Tom cares about assignments and people. I'm now using the field version of Workforce where I've acknowledged a assignment that was sent to me. And now here I am, I can acknowledge I've received that assignment. And once I'm there, I can do two things. I can either choose to navigate to it or I can survey at that assignment. But the important part of what Workforce is doing is it's giving me the list of assignments that I myself have to do. Once I get there, I launch Survey 123 to actually do the inspection. And so Survey 123, this is a form for pavement condition index. And you'll see this form actually goes ahead and actually, it's an index, so it calculates a field at the end of this. So I'm going to scroll through this Survey 123 form. And here at the very bottom, it's going to show me that PCI score, which is very important. And while I'm on assignment for this particular inspection, I'm going to fill out some information. So there's the PCI score of 70. Now as I fill out some information here for the inspection, I'm going to choose a road comfort rating. You'll see that PCI score has now been updated automatically. That's the way the form's been configured. I'm also going to just take a quick photo while out in the field to show the work that I'm doing or what that looked like at that time. As I'm just going to click here, it happens to be the screen, so not a really exciting picture. But the important thing here is with that picture and how this has been configured is that picture is now embedded with not just the date and timestamp of when that picture was taken, but also the PCI score. So it's also always going to have that in it. It's hard to see, but it's there embedded in that image. So it's always going to carry through with the form and with the data. So I'm going to hit send now. This now goes back to the office, and now let's take it from there, Tom.
Yeah, so that's a single job, but I really need to be more effective at optimizing routes for my whole crews and looking at the big picture. So this is a list of all those pothole reports, and I'm going to use the plan routes tool to optimize routes for my field crews. So I'm going to specify some parameters for this. Where do they start in the morning? I can import that from a layer, or I can just add to the map as a depot perhaps. How many vehicles I have 5 field crews. How many stops they can make in a day. Here I think we put 60 in. How long they spend at each particular stop, and how long their day is. And I put all those things in, and I ask for it to solve it. This is not a particularly costly operation. In this case, 5 vehicles, 5 credits. It's really 50 cents. It's pretty minimal. And I've already done it for this, and so let's take a look at those results. You can see the different color routes there, and then also the stops. There are numbers in the stops, and they're optimizing, minimizing travel time and distance for stops. And I can push that route to Matt, who's in the field, so he can find his way around through the day.
Yeah, so to do that, I'm going to be using Navigator now, and Navigator is loading in those optimized routes. So they're very specific to what I'm going to do for each one of these days, and then also specific to potholes, right? So I'm going to choose my Monday pothole route. You'll see that it will zoom me in to the full stops for that particular day, and then Navigator is going to show me how to get from point to point. So it's going to route me from where I am to my first stop, and of course using that optimized route to get me to the next stop and the next stop afterwards. Once I'm actually at that location, then I'm going to use Survey 123 to collect and do that inspection or work once I'm actually on site. So Navigator's, again, loading in that optimized route, helping me get there, and then once I'm on site, I'm going to be using Survey 123 to do that inspection or collection point, just as I normally would.
And you can't hear it, but Navigator also speaks the turns and such to you. So all this information is available on an operations dashboard. And just like the dashboard on your car provides you an overview of the status of the car, This supervisor's dashboard gives them instant insight into the operations of their team. So when the public works director asks about the status of a project, or the city manager is being asked by a reporter about what the city is doing to fix potholes, or a councilwoman is being asked about what is going on in her district, they can answer those questions with authoritative information immediately.
All right, we're going to show Quick Capture very briefly. So Quick Capture is a new application for collecting data at speed. So let's say I'm in the field. I notice there's a pothole that's not already in my GIS system of record. It's not on my list of assignments. So I can capture that data while in the field and send it to the office. And in this case, this particular Quick Capture has been configured for 2 different potholes, one small, one large. You'll see if I click on small pothole very quickly, I don't do anything else. If you notice right there in the top right, the minute I click small pothole, it collected that point and sent it off. When I click large pothole, it makes me take a photo to prove it's a large pothole, I guess, and type in some information. So here we go. Really, it's a pothole. It's really here. Then I send that back out to the office. And I've seen some really incredible configurations of Quick Capture. And what this does, again, is capture data quickly while you're in the field and sends it back to the home office.
Yeah, and I can see that pothole that Matt observed in the dashboard. If you keep your eye on that large pothole number, you'll see it change from 18 to 19 as his report makes its way into the system. I'm usually the one who sees this, but I can also share it with the director or city manager. Now, these apps are useful and give us a way for residents to communicate information back to the city, but the residents have to be proactive, and maintaining street infrastructure is also understanding where you might have issues in 3 to 6 months or a year, and this is where GeoAI comes in. We can use images and videos gathered from the trucks and field crews, and through machine learning, understand where there are cracks and other road surface issues and which ones may need to be taken care of in the future. And this data we collect is processed using AI or machine learning, and the field images are compared to a known set of sample defects. And we can look at this data and view it on a dashboard like this to show where we need to prioritize our field work. And now we have a modern way to be proactive with street maintenance.
All right. I want to pull up something that I think is very valuable for folks. And that is, we've shown quite a lot of different pieces of technology and how they work together. And then I want to give an overview of how everything looks. So we already know that folks are using things like Collector and Survey 123 for the collection piece of a field operations workflow. But think of how everything works together, right? So whether it's coordinating that work with workforce, both for the dispatcher and for the folks in the field. Of course, there's Navigator we showed with those optimized routes, pulling that in. There's 2 new things I want to show you. There's Tracker, which provides a way to know where your field workers are in real time. We unfortunately didn't show that today. And then Quick Capture, right? So briefly we showed that. I think those are 2 where anyone here on today's call, you might want to look at those and how you can apply them to your organization to see how you can increase the use of your own GIS. And of course, Operations Dashboard. Across the board, using an operations dashboard for showing the status of those projects that are happening, what needs to get done, and communicating it both internally and externally. So if you need any help with any of these, just reach out to your account team and we can help show how to use any of these solutions for your field workflows. Okay, next up, well, quickly let's recap that briefly. We showed you a lot of different applications. Of course, Citizen Problem Reporter we started with, and Workforce, Navigator, Survey 123, Quick Capture, and Dashboard. But more than the technology we showed, I think what's really important to take away is that by implementing the GIS here, we showed that by optimizing those workflows that were already there, right? The work was already being done. What we showed is how to apply GIS to increase the work being able to get done more quickly. So how those field crews are dispatched, how those field crews collect data, how decision makers analyze that information, and of course how the supervisor, their workload has decreased, especially when it comes to answering those questions that they're going to get from the administration. So a lot of information in that one demo. Okay, so now let's do another poll question, if you don't mind. And this is going to follow our typical pattern here of what mobile products have you already used? And again, this is a multiple choice, so choose any that apply. There we go, looks like it's working. I'm seeing some results come in. Great, I'm gonna give it a minute or 2. And that was a big one there. And so for anyone asking for the video of this session, I think this is an important one. The public works is an important one to go through and look again. Even if you're not in public works, I think the field workflows apply across the board for many, many different scenarios. So a lot of pieces there again that we showed, and I think they're very important to understand how they work together. And again, as far as this theme of amplifying your GIS, if you're not using one of these now, the point is, well, why not start using one to increase the use of the GIS you already have? I'm going to give it one more or a few more seconds here with the poll. We're at about 1 minute for this. And a few more. Okay, looks like answers have stopped rolling in, so I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share this one so we can take a look at it. Again, every audience is different, so this is neat. Survey 123 and Collector always top the list. Collector's usually at the very top, but this is interesting to see Survey 123 there. It's great to see Operations Dashboard there. Even some use of Tracker, so fantastic. That's an interesting breakout. Thank you for everyone that answered that poll question. Now let's talk about something a little bit different, and this is going to be very different for us to present as well, but we're going to talk about the engineering department and specifically how Esri and Autodesk are working together. So if you did miss it, there was a partnership created back at Autodesk University just a few years ago where Esri and Autodesk announced this relationship together. The both CEOs announced this together in this session. And why did we do this? Well, because it's a big problem to solve. By the year 2040, the Earth's population will be 9 billion people. 6 billion of those people are projected to be living in cities. And that means that to meet the demand in the US alone, we'll need to build 1,000 buildings per day and spend nearly $3 trillion or more to build that infrastructure. So that's not only going to affect the buildings, but think of all the services and utilities that would be needed to support this growth, right? Well, so to handle this, users like us will need to make sure that we have tools needed to support that demand, and those tools are going to need to be easy to use and, most importantly, integrated. So our companies were looking at ways to streamline this process of plan, design, build, and operate, all with data at the very center and allowing users to use those applications that they want to in their workflow. So whether it's an Esri product or an Autodesk product, having data at the center and access to that via any way that makes sense to them, that was what we were trying to do. And so what does this mean for you as a GIS manager or administrator? Well, if your organization has Autodesk products like Civil 3D, InfraWorks, or AutoCAD, those users can now access that data in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. So that means you no longer need to share a shapefile with engineers. And that's huge, right? You can now give controlled access to those new users to your GIS. So again, if your user organization or if you have users in your organization using those Autodesk products, now they can access ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, wherever your data happens to sit, and seamlessly flow the data between those two platforms. So maybe let's take a look at what this looks like, Tom. Let's go right into it directly.
All right, let me just get my screen up here. Okay. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're actually looking at AutoCAD 2020. Now, I'm not really an AutoCAD user, and my goal with this is not to show you how to use AutoCAD per se, but to really focus on some of the improvements to the ArcGIS for AutoCAD plugin, which I've installed. And it allows a streamlined connection for data between ArcGIS and AutoCAD so everyone can work more efficiently. So I've installed the plugin. I get a new ribbon here, ArcGIS, and I've already logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Add Data button. And we can see that I have access to, excuse me, things that are in the Living Atlas, which I mentioned before, my own content, things that are shared with me in groups or my organization and beyond. And let's go ahead by start by adding some content from our organization. In this case, we'll add some imagery. Now, this is some 2018 ortho imagery that it's not part of the base map. It's high resolution imagery that's been published and hosted in my ArcGIS Online org. And if we zoom in and let it redraw, you'll see that crisp imagery come in. Now let's go back and add in a traffic markings layer. This data is usually traditionally managed and maintained in AutoCAD by the engineering department, but now it's being drawn directly from a hosted feature service that's located in my ArcGIS Online org. And if we look at that and zoom in, you can see we've got those nice traffic markings. We'll add one more layer, and in this case, this is the SOAR infrastructure layer. So as Matt mentioned, with this partnership and this plugin, we're allowing data to flow seamlessly between these two products, and that means that those engineers are able to edit GIS data in AutoCAD, which makes, when it makes sense, and in turn, your GIS staff can visualize engineering data that might have only been available in like a CAD file previously. Okay, so let's close this out. Let's do a couple things. Let me shut off the traffic markings for now. And let's zoom over to this area here. So what I have is a street where the main stops in the middle of the length of the street, and I need to extend it to pick up these new service lines that were put in. And I'm going to use AutoCAD tools to do that. So I'm going to specify the layer where this line's going to go, and I'm going to say I want to add a new line. We'll go ahead and add it in. And now I'm going to go and bring up its properties. So we'll select it. And the properties that you see here are the GIS properties. So these are not CAD drawing properties, but the properties from that the GIS. So we can specify things like the material. And when we do that, we see the domain or pick list that comes directly from the geodatabase. And this is PVC pipe. And I know its diameter is 8 inches. Again, this domain from the GIS. We'll go ahead and put that in. And the last step, after I do my edits, is to synchronize those or to push those edits back. And you can see I've got one addition. Now, we put this as its own button because you may want to do a lot of edits and then only synchronize when you're ready. Let me go ahead and hit the synchronize button, and it'll send my update to the GIS. And now what I want to do is I want to look at another common workflow, one where we have field workers that need to look at these features and make their own edits. I'm going to switch to collector, and normally we'd show you this on an iPad, but I'm going to show it to you here on my PC. This is collector, and it's looking at a web map that has the same layers in it, and this is the layer that just came in. And we can actually click on it and see that PVC 8-inch thing there. But what I want to do now is I want to actually add a new feature. I noticed that there's a manhole missing at this right here at this location. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down that manhole, and I'm going to specify some parameters of it. It's a brand new manhole, of course, so it's in excellent condition. I could fill this whole thing out, and then I'm going to go ahead and submit it. And the last piece I want to show you is I'm going to switch to a web map. I'm going to zoom in here. I see that manhole just appear. And in this web map, I can see all those edits, whether they came from AutoCAD, whether they came from field workers. Really, because we have the centralized database and we're allowing the right people to have access to the right layers at the right time and being able possibly to edit it, we have one place where all this information can live. And here I am in that map viewer looking at that same information. And if I say click on that, you can see that that's the pipe, and then the manhole is here, and it's all there for me to see. So really, a great way to give access and editing capabilities to the people that need it and where they need it.
All right, thanks, Tom. I think you summarized it very well. So I'm just going to mention this briefly, but the important part is having GIS accessible by either the engineering team or the regular users, like the collector user that Tom just showed there, using Esri applications. The important thing there is that by doing that, you're no longer just sharing a shapefile and sending it out, but data is where it needs to be accessed by the applications that your engineering team has used. That's the important part of what we're trying to do there and get across. So I think we did a good job of explaining that. And we have one more section of the ArcGIS in action, and then we're going to go to that closing and call to action. The next section is land records. And so real briefly, with land records, we know it's a process that really doesn't slow down at all. There's always changing communities, and GIS staffs and local assessors are constantly on the hook to enter those new deeds in a timely manner, and of course manage those changes in property assessments. So in my community, probably your own, I'm watching neighborhoods revitalize around a local brewery or a restaurant scene, and certainly old homes are being renovated and new condominiums are constantly being built. So as the community changes, what does that mean for the staff workload, and how can we improve those staff workflows? So to do that, Tom is going to take us through an example of how the GIS professional plays a role in this process.
All right, let's get myself going here. Okay, so for folks that may not be aware, Pro now supports the parcel fabric for land record management beginning at version 2.4. And today our goal is to deepen your understanding of the technology, this new technology, in 3 ways. By showing you Pro's task-driven fabric creation tools, by showing you some efficient editing workflows, and by taking a look at ArcGIS Pro's new custom parcel types, which will extend the land records and save you time. So let's go to a place like Matt mentioned, in this case, Sheboygan County, Wisconsin, where economic development nonprofits are helping local small businesses grow. Now, the first thing I want to show you is how to create a parcel fabric using the county's tax parcel polygons. Starting at version 2.4 of Pro, there's actually a set of tasks that is included with the installation that will guide you step by step through the process of migrating your data into a parcel fabric. Tasks in general are a set of pre-configured steps that guide you and others through a workflow or a business process, and you can author these tasks for yourself for use within your organization. You can share them out. You can start by using ones that Pro provides. And new in Pro 2.5 is the ability to find those included tasks here on that insert menu. If I pull down this task here, I go here to this import and open, you see that I have some of those tasks around the parcel fabric. Okay, now I've already have the parcel fabric administration tasks open on the right here in my task pane. And in the interest of time, I've already run the setup information model task, which creates an empty parcel fabric. And I've also run the load data into parcel fabric task using the Sheboygan County tax parcel polygons. But let's take a quick look at the first 2 steps of loading your data. So the first one is to simply run the append geoprocessing tool, which loads your existing parcel polygons into the fabric. And once you've, this actually includes mapping the fields so that the fields go into the right, the information goes into the right fields. And once you've completed this initial load of the polygon features, we move on to enabling the parcel topology. And then we create parcel records where we designate a record name field. This often comes from your CAMA system. And the last thing we do is build the fabric itself. And that creates this fabric, and you can see the fabric on the screen here. We're going to focus in on this area in the center of the screen where we have a foreclosed home that's going to be raised by the city, and a neighboring brewery is planning to expand. Now a deed has been recorded that states I need to merge these 2 parcels. So let's go ahead and start that by going to this records ribbon and create a new record for the merge. I'll give it an ID, and it's not a split, it's a merge, right? So we'll create that record. And then we'll go to the merge tool, and we'll select the parcels that we want to merge. So that's this one and this one. We see those 2 here. We'll give it a new parcel ID for that merge. And I'll go ahead and do the merge. Okay, well, you know, that seemed pretty simple, and it was a pretty simple example, of course, but what's really interesting and exciting is what's happening behind the scenes with the parcel fabric. The fabric keeps track of the legal area of all the recorded transactions, and if I turn on this history layer, you can see also that the parcel lineage was maintained, and all this was done automatically. Okay, so let's say we've done a bunch of work for the day, and now we want to update the information about all this line work. We want to update the coordinate geometry or COGO measurements. So let me go ahead and grab the COGO tool to do that. There's a right here, update COGO. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And for all these selected ones that you see, it's actually calculated the COGO measurements and put them on the map here for me. Um, and it's really sort of important to keep this information up to date, not only for my county assessor, but also for the public.
Right. All right. So that's fantastic. Let's take a look at creating parcel types in Pro. And just so you know, now in Pro, you can create as many parcel types as you need, each with their own schema. And so gone are the days of adding field upon field to those tax parcels to accommodate all possible parcels in a single base table. So you can now save time by separately managing and querying all of your ownership and tax parcels and those subdivisions or condos.
Yeah, and speaking of condos with new development, redevelopment in our urban and suburban communities, we're seeing more and more multi-floor and multi-use buildings. Now, I've shown so far parcel editing in a 2D environment, but let's explore new custom parcel types and the idea of vertical plats in 3D. Let's switch this to this map here where we're seeing a footprint of a new mixed-use condo building. And if we take a look at the plat for this building, let me go up a page here. It's a pretty typical plat. You see the layout of the building itself. You see now, we also notice here though, for each floor, you have a lower and upper elevation. Now we're going to use those by adding those attributes into a new parcel type for condominiums. So that the floor number, lower and upper elevation values. So let's switch back to the map. Let me just grab my identify tool here, and if I click on this, you can see that the floor number, lower and upper elevations are all now part of the schema for these condo parcel types. Now I can also I know we're looking sort of at 2D, but I can use this range tool to actually look at a specific floor if I want. That's floor 3. I can look at floor 4, 5, etc. So this is not a new tool, but it's one you may not be aware of. It's kind of a great filtering tool for us. Okay, let me shut that off. Now, I can also turn the lines on if I want, and those lines have that same 3D, elevation information. But it's sort of hard to make sense of this all in this 2D view. So let's switch to 3D, where it needs the full power of Pro to visualize this condo building. Okay, now here I've used a simple extrusion of those lower and upper elevation values to represent the entire vertical plat in 3D. The interior commercial spaces are labeled and are the dark blue ones, the tan for residential, and that light blue polygon you see extending above the building is actually the air rights, which is important to planning agencies. And just like you saw in the 2D map, I could bring on this range and I can look at individual floors if I want. I can actually look at a range of floors if I want. I can also, if I'm interested, I can filter down to say just the commercial properties just by using a definition query. Really great ways to be able to look at and visualize the data. And I can even change my symbology to represent these commercial units by their assessed values. And this is a really interesting way for assessors to gain a little insight into this particular condo building. Now, speaking of assessors, they spend a lot of time in spreadsheets like this. Lots of fields, lots of information. But they need a better way to gain some insight into identifying outliers and patterns and to help make better decisions about property assessments. So let's take a look at the ArcGIS Insights as a tool to help us do that. Now this is a browser-based tool, and I brought into this Insights app that information around sales information. You can see the number of sales. I can turn on where those sales have happened. This isn't very helpful to have a bunch of dots here, so I'm going to change this to a heat map. Gives me a slightly better sense of what's going on. Okay, so let's now, this is interesting, but you know what? I want to actually think about foreclosures. Now, one of the ways that we can look at what are possibly foreclosures is to look at the sales ratio. And a high sales ratio is an indication of a possible foreclosure. So let's open up our assessor table, and you can see all those fields that the assessor carries. and we go down a little bit, there is the sales ratio field. I'm going to pick it up and I'm just going to drag it and make a new chart. In this case, I'm going to make a box plot to look at the distribution of the values of the sales ratio. And like I said, the higher values up here are potential foreclosures. Now, before I do anything else, let's actually grab, I have a yes/no foreclosure field here. Let's drag that and let's make a new map with that yes/no. And you can see that the oranges are, I think there's a legend here, orange is yes for foreclosure and gray is blank or no. Now, what's really cool is the idea of really bringing all these things together. And I'm going to show you that by just clicking on this outlier, these high sales ratio values. And I want you to pay attention to the heat map and also to this map we just made. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you can see how things have changed. I'm going to unclick it, and then I'll click it again just so you see that. Now I'm looking only at the records that are those outliers, and these maps update to show me that. So that's a pretty interesting way to be able to look at the where of these possible foreclosures. Now, let's unclick that. Let's do one other thing. We've looked at the where, but let's look at the when, and I have sales date, and you can see, interestingly, Insights breaks that up for me into year, quarter, month. I don't have those as separate fields. I just have a date field. But let's grab the year and month, and let's drag those over, and let's make a new chart, and we'll make, just like we saw before, we'll make another heat chart, make it a little bit wider for us. And now we're looking at the distribution of sales through time, month by month and year by year, and the darker colors equal more sales. And this is also tied back to our box plot here and to other cards. So when I click here to filter it, you can see how the heat chart represents that, and we can look for patterns in different ways. Where are more foreclosures happening when, etc. Really interesting way to interactively do this, and I really don't need a lot of GIS knowledge. But I want to show you one other thing, and that's the idea that what's happening here is actually being recorded. All the steps that I took to create those cards, we call those little things cards there, is being recorded in this model. So you can see how I styled it, how I built a box plot, how I aggregated the data. It's all being recorded for me. And I can take this model and I can reuse it. I can share it with other people who can put their own data into it. So whatever analysis or views I've set up, they'll see the same thing with their own data. And it really sort of also, as I mentioned before for models, helps us really document this. And all this is really being done in a browser with someone doesn't need a lot of GIS experience to do this kind of analysis and visualization.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. That's fantastic. I just want to recap quickly. So Insights was in a browser, and it was looking at CAMA data and then some spreadsheet data. And the important thing to take away there is, though, that this could be an assessor, but it could also be anyone else, that looking at data and looking for patterns in a new way. So using Insights to see those patterns, to create maps just from a spreadsheet that you can't see by looking at a spreadsheet, right? That's a huge value there for what Insights can bring for identifying patterns, creating maps, and seeing how everything works together through a web application. So to recap the land records, on our journey with land records, we started in that growing community. We focused on parcel management and making it efficient by using Pro. Then we discussed how Insights could benefit assessors by identifying those outliers and patterns within the data. All right, let's take a breath, catch our breath, and we're going to go into the last section here, which is the closing and call to action. And this is really important. These are going to be some key resources we want you to consider as you roll out new GIS technology, as you increase and amplify your GIS. So first up, and by the way, I do want to mention all of these are going to be on a hub site for your regional office, and I will show those both for New York City and for Baltimore in just a second. But first, let me go through a few of these documents. The first one is the geospatial strategy document. So we've shown you a lot of technology, but technology alone isn't going to help you without a plan. And we call that plan a geospatial strategy. So if you're daunted about where to get started, this is a really good document to read and help inspire you to really aim high so you can maximize all of those capabilities that your GIS can provide. So here's the link for it. We will have this on the hub sites, which I'll get to in a moment. So the first one, again, is the geospatial strategy document. And the second one, the short title of this is the best practices document. And we know a lot of people already know about this document. It is one of our most downloaded papers that we do put out, and it is updated many times during a year, and that's because things change quite a bit, right? On what this covers. So the best practices document covers the people, the data, the process, and technology, all on how to put together your GIS and how to architect that best platform for ArcGIS. So again, here's the link for it. This again is on the hub site. And another important thing to talk about is community and lifelong learning. So one of the great ways to ensure continued and long-lasting success is with lifelong learning. And we do more than create software. We really do focus on professional development for you with training and MOOCs and books of various kinds. We have lots of resources. We do have Curtis from our training team on today because we know we get a lot of questions about training specifically. But we have other resources too, like the student and personal use licenses, unlimited e-learning, blogs. We have podcasts, webinars like this one, of course, social media, and periodicals like Arc News and Arc User. There's also certification for folks, and of course, there's the GeoNet community, which you really should be participating in. I think we've mentioned that a few times here, and there's one more thing to mention about GeoNet in a second. One of the other communities we mentioned was the early adopter program. So if you want to have a better understanding about what the latest releases in ArcGIS are, what products are coming out next, we really encourage you to be part of the early adopter program. You'll be the first to test these new products and capabilities and provide the feedback before they're released. Okay, here's the hub sites. So a quick mention about it. These are specific to the regional office that's nearest to you. They're meant as a two-way engagement platform where you can connect with your local Esri office to stay informed, engaged, and inspired on what's happening. And so there's one for Philadelphia, there's one for, which is covers Baltimore, by the way, and then there's one for New York City. There's also one for Boston if there's anyone from that region, and of course the Charlotte office and others. These hub sites are a little bit different than just going to Esri.com and seeing the full big picture. Again, the regional office hubs are a place to see news and information about what's happening in your regional GIS community. The links I've showed today for the best practices document, the geospatial strategy are there, as well as some of the other resources that we covered. If we did the face-to-face, there's some videos and some other things. Those are all here on the hub page. I also know that these are updated here. I updated the Philadelphia one here just to show you that there's also examples of regional COVID-19 hubs that have been set up for those particular regions and areas. These are constantly evolving. This isn't a static website. It's updated with news and information from that GIS user community as it happens. And you can see who's there in that office, what that office looks like, who's there, and how it works. So I really encourage you guys to sign up and follow the office. This is where you can also see things that are happening, not just with Esri, but in the GIS regional community general. So if there's a local event happening, if there's a partner that's presenting something, if there's news from either a local county or city or something happening, you can find it here on the hub, and it's a good way to just sort of get away from the bigger picture stuff and know what's happening in New York City or in Boston or in Philadelphia that's important to me in my own GIS community. So please go to this location, follow the office. It's also a good example of what a hub site can look like and do for you. So if you're interested in building your own hub, it's a good example. One more brand new community to give attention to here is the newly created COVID-19 GeoNet community. So here's the link here at the bottom. Again, I think this is on all of the hub pages at this point, but it's important to know that there is resources available in GeoNet for coronavirus as well. And I mentioned this slide earlier. I want to recap it really quickly. There are new solutions for coronavirus response and business continuities solution rolled out already. There's a hub template initiative for coronavirus response. So if you want to roll out your own hub site, that's available as well. And then, of course, there's the larger Esri COVID-19 hub, which has lots of resources and examples of how people are responding to this. It's a good resource for finding more information and data all in one spot. So great resources. These are constantly being updated and evaluated and changed as things happen. We do see new applications rolled out, daily here from states, cities, and counties, of course, and there's some interesting private ones as well on the Esri COVID-19 hub. Okay, we have just two more questions, I believe, if we can roll through these real quick. And let's see, the first question is, have you deployed a hub site? So just simple yes, no question. I'll leave this up for a moment. All right, votes still coming in, so I'll leave that up for a little bit longer. All right, looks like the polling has sort of come to a slow stop. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and end the poll. So it's about 20-ish% that have deployed a hub site. And one more sort of question around COVID-19, which is, have you deployed any of our solutions, whether that's a hub site, a dashboard, or an application specific to COVID-19? Just interested to get a feel for what the community in today's call has deployed already. All right, just a few more seconds with this one. Votes still coming in. All right, going to go ahead and end the polling for this one. About the same, about 20% have deployed a COVID-19 solution, which I think is important and interesting to note. So thank you for those that have done that. And I want to cover one more slide that I think is extremely important to understand. This kind of covers everything we've talked about today. And whatever our short-term and new normal and long-term goals might be, there's many decision makers that didn't know what GIS was before 2020 and dealing with COVID-19, and now they're recognizing the importance of the work that you're doing. And so you have this technology in your hands already. The first step is to get the most out of the technology you already have. So amplifying what you have access to now and increasing the benefits of the technology by expanding it to new users. You could do that today, like right after the seminar, you can roll out some of the new things you've seen today. You can also increase the amount and importance, intensity of your GIS by deploying new technologies. So some of the things you saw today that you haven't yet deployed, going beyond new users, let's go to new technology for new users. And that I think is extremely important. That's what we're seeing these days with these solutions rolling out, because GIS is at the center of being able to respond and communicate effectively what's happening in an organization. And of course, I think a big piece of this is increasing the likelihood of success by executing a geospatial strategy. And you can get help with either our partners or Esri to help put that together. We understand that these are really uneasy times, but we're seeing many workflows that are amplified by GIS through this pandemic. We're seeing agencies come together that haven't really collaborated before, new data sharing groups being put together using our technology, and people have never used GIS, leveraging your data sets and your applications in new technologies and old ones, which is I think really important, and it feels good to be part of that, to know that the technology that you are a part of or managing is really being used to communicate, to assist, and to help make decisions and show what's happening in an organization. So it's extremely helpful for anyone that is doing that or interested in doing that. Thank you for using our technology to come to the table and offer solutions to help solve this pandemic. So it's extremely important. And also on that note, we know you're extremely busy if you're using our technology to do this. And so we greatly thank you for being part of this today to learn more. Again, this video will be available to you after. I think in a couple of days we'll send this link out. And with that, there will be a survey. And the survey is really important just to help us um, when we do our next seminar, we want to make it better. We want to improve it. So if you fill out that survey and give us feedback, we'll know what we can work on, how to make it better, what you'd like to see or not see. So please fill out that survey as well. It's extremely important. With that, this seminar is over for today. We're going to hang on the line to get some more questions through the chat for a few more moments. So again, thank you so much for the work you're doing, for being interested in how to do something new or take your GIS to the next level, which is what the intent of this seminar was about. And there's a lot of new resources we talked about today that weren't even here a few weeks ago. Tom mentioned the CHIME model. We mentioned the COVID-19 solutions, the new hub templates. There's a lot of new stuff that was, let's say the seminar was put together for the beginning of the year, what's new with ArcGIS. And even since then, there's been even newer technologies and solutions created. So happy to bring that to you guys as you're asking questions about how to use our technology in the changing environment. So thank you so much. Again, we're going to be online here for a few more moments, taking questions through the chat window.